Communicative language teaching. Why there is CLT? CLT emerged in the early 1970s as a result of the work of the Council of Europe experts. This group saw the need to focus in communicative proficiency rather than mastery of structures.
What is CLT, or the Communicative Language Teaching? So here are the different definitions of communicative language teaching. First, communicative language teachings, or CLT, is an approach to the teaching of second and foreign languages that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the ultimate goal of learning a language. It is also referred to as communicative approach to the teaching of foreign languages, or simply the communicative approach. This is according to Wikipedia. So its origins are many. So the origins of CLT were many. Insofar as one teaching methodology tends to influence the next. The communicative approach could be said to be the product of educators and linguists who had grown dissatisfied with the audiolingual and grammar translation methods of foreign language instruction. So this is based on the study of Center for Applied Linguistics. So the communicative approach ko no was developed or it was the product of the educators and linguists who were not satisfied of the methods of the audiolingual and grammar translation. Who, because of dissatisfaction, communicative language teachings comes up. So next, this method aims at developing procedures for the teaching of the four skills that acknowledge the interdependence of language and communication. It aims at having students become communicatively competent. So the goal of this approach is to let the students be communicatively competent, or let their communication skills be improved pa jud sa kaning approach. So how is communicative language teaching used? The communicative approach is based on the idea that learning language successfully comes through having to communicate real meaning. When learners are involved in real communication, their natural strategies for language acquisition will be used, and this will allow them to learn to use the language. And the last definition is a set of principles about teaching, including recommendations about method and syllabus, where the focus is on meaningful communication, not structure. So this approach will just focus on the communication job, not the structure of the language. Use, not usage. So they will just have to use the language, not identify the siguro mga things to consider in using the language. So they'll just have to use the language or use the language in communicating. So in this approach, students are given tasks to accomplish using language instead of studying the language. This is according to ESL glossary. So as I've said, that they would just have to use the language, not study the language. And next I have a question. What is the focus of communicative language teaching approach? So the communicative approach focuses on the use of language in everyday situations, or the functional aspects of language, and less on the formal structures. So there must be a certain balance between the two. It gives priority to meanings and rules of use rather than to grammar and rules of structure.
What are the main techniques of CLT? The main techniques of CLT are audiolingual method, automatic language growth, communicative language teaching, comprehension approach, community language learning, computer-assisted language learning, content-based instruction, and direct method. The audiolingual method is used in teaching foreign languages. It is based on behaviorist theory, which postulates that certain traits of living things, and in this case humans, could be trained through a system of reinforcement. The correct use of a trait would receive positive feedback, while incorrect use of that trait would receive negative feedback. This approach to language learning was similar to another, earlier method called the direct method. Like the direct method, the audiolingual method advised that students should be taught a language directly without using the student's native language to explain new words or grammar in the target language. Next is the automatic language growth. It is born from the desire to achieve fluency in a foreign language. During our quiz to become native in a second language, something that many consider to be an impossible task, we have come to challenge many popular myths regarding language learning. Inviting thoroughly, it is hoped to challenge that benefit in our research ideas regarding the learn of using the language. Next is the Communicative Language Teaching or CLT. It is an approach to language teaching that emphasizes interaction as both the means and the ultimate goal of the study. Language learners in environments utilizing CLT techniques learn and practice the target language through the interaction with one another and the instructor. The study of authentic texts, those written in the target language for purposes other than language learning, and through the use of the language both in class and outside of class. Learners converse about personal experiences with partners, and instructors teach topics outside of the realm of traditional grammar in order to promote language skills in all types of situations. This method also claims to encourage learners to incorporate their personal experiences into their language environment and to focus on the learning experience in addition to the learning of the target language. The next is the comprehension approach. The comprehension approach is methodologies of language learning that emphasize understanding of language rather than speaking. This is in contrast to the better-known communicative approach, under which learning is taught to emerge through language production. It is a focus on speech and writing. The next is Communicative Language Learning or CLL, is a language teaching approach. In community language learning, the students work together to develop what aspects of a language they would like to learn. It is based on the counseling approach in which the teacher acts as a counselor and a paraphraser, while the learner is seen as a client and collaborator. The CLL emphasizes the sense of community in the learning group, encourages interactions as a vehicle for learning, and considers as a priority the students' feelings and the recognition of struggles in language acquisition. There is no syllables or textbook to follow, and it is the students themselves who determine the content of the lesson by means of meaningful conversations in which they discuss real messages. Notably, it incorporates translation, transcription, and recording techniques. The Computer-Assisted Language Learning, or CALL, British or Computer-Aided Instruction, is briefly defined in a seminal work as the research for and study of applications of the computer in language teaching and learning. CALL embraces a wide range of information and communications technology applications and approaches to teaching and learning foreign languages. From the traditional drill and practice programs that characterized in the 1960s. It is more recent manifestations used in a virtual learning environment and web-based distance learning. It is also extends to the use of our corpora and concordanswers, interactive whiteboards, computer-mediated communication, language learning in virtual worlds, and mobile-assisted language or learning. Next is the content-based instruction, or CBI, is a significant approach in language education that designed to provide second language learners instructions in content and language. Hence, it is also called content-based language teaching or CBLT. CBI is considered an empowering approach which encourages learners to learn a language by using it as a real means for communication from the very first day in class. The idea is to make them become independent learners so they can continue the learning process even outside the class. Historically, the word content has changed its meaning in second language teaching. Content used to refer to the methods of grammar translation, audiolingual methodology, and vocabulary or sound patterns in dialogue form. Recently, content is interpreted as the use of subject matter as a vehicle for second or foreign language teaching. The last and not the least, the direct method of teaching. The direct method of teaching is sometimes called the natural method and is often, but not exclusively, it is used in teaching foreign languages, refrains from using the learner's native language, and uses only the target language. It was established in England around 1900s and contrasts with the grammar translation method and other traditional approaches. It was adopted by key international language schools such as Berkeley and many of the language departments of the Foreign Service Institute to U.S. State Department in 2012. In general, teaching focuses on the development of oral skills. It is characterized features of the direct method. It is a teaching concepts and vocabulary through pantomiming, real-life objects, and other visual materials.
There are activities for communicative learning teaching. Oral activities are popular among CLT teachers as opposed to grammar drills or reading and writing activities because they include active conversation, creative, and unpredicted responses from students. Activities vary based on the level of language class they are being used in. The following are sample activities. Scrambled sentences. The students are given a passage or a text in which the sentences are in a scrambled order. Language games. Games are used frequently in CLT. The students find it enjoyable, and if they are properly designed, they give students valuable communicative practice. Role play. Role plays are very important in CLT because they give students an opportunity to practice communicating in different social contexts and in different social roles.